We're good? Okay. All right. We will, 8:11, we're back in session. Our next item under special business is boundary change recommendations. Superintendent Nielsen.
President Wales, board members, thanks for some time tonight to bring forward some work we've been able to do with long-range planning. We've had several meetings this fall, most of them focused on enrollment. And most of the content has been out of Mr. Bingham's head and the work he does to keep track of what's on in districts around the state, but ours included. And tonight he's with us to I think I'd say shore up some recommendations that we made in the past and talk about the recommendation really to get the Milligan students back into Milligan. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Shannon Bingham.
Great, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. It's a privilege to be here. Privileged to be anywhere pertaining to a flat tire in Glenwood Canyon and getting whacked in the face. I was expecting walking here with a black eye, and I'm glad that didn't happen. So anyway, we've been working in our committee for quite some time addressing growth issues. I watch the district constantly. Not because I'm going to Buc-ee's to get brisket, but I watch the district and I go to Buc-ee's and I get brisket. But we continue to grow. We are recovering from the interest rate situation that we're mired in. Back in May of 2023, we pretty much authorized an eventual boundary change of the Elwell neighborhoods east of Teller, that we would phase those into Pioneer Ridge in conjunction with the activation of Millikan Intermediate School. So once we had those seats and we could do that transition of taking 100 and some odd Teller East children, transition them into Pioneer Ridge, and then transition the Millikan children home, that would be a transfer of those 100 students that would help us make our facilities last for at least 4 years before we need another. And so my continued monitoring of the district suggests that that is a very sound strategy, and I would like to recommend to you that you pursue formalizing that effective SY 25-6 so that we can give families adequate notice. So what's happening around the district? Probably got a dozen houses happening in Revere, which is straight north of Lead Rock Center, where the new grocery store Murdoch's is. And 2 builders working in there. There are 12 for sale right now. It's moving about like I expected it to. It will be slow and steady, and right now we only have 3 children coming out of the entire subdivision. Ledge Rock has 55 homes built. Lennar goes in there and they factory build homes in the field with large crews. They just opened what they call phase 2, which is the additional single family lots that you see on the east side of the apartment buildings. They're building the lots as well. So that's going to be eventually a significant impact for us. But right now, even with 28 or 30 cars overnighting in the apartment parking lot and probably 38 or 40 occupied homes in Revere, we only have those 3 children from that part of the district. So we're scratching our heads about whether or not those families are going to live here and put their children in a school close to where they work, because that way interchange, even though Buc-ee's is the focal point, it's the gateway to a lot of affordable housing in Johnstown and Millikan for people who work regionally, whether they work at CU, they work at UNC, work somewhere in Loveland or Fort Collins or Boulder or wherever. A lot of folks are commuting to work, and post-pandemic, post 9/11, parent behaviors are very much aligned with the idea of taking children to work with you and putting them in a school that's 3 to 5 miles from their place of work. So if a parent works 15 or 20 or 25 miles from their place of residence, a lot of those families on the Colorado Front Range are taking their children to a school outside of their district of residence. So we're kind of waiting to see what the pattern of the folks that move into housing that is adjacent to the intersection, what's that pattern going to be? Back when we looked at this Telep East boundary change, we also took the granary development, and that's also a Pine Ridge development, and we stopped short of a line just south of Ledge Rock. So right now, the Ledge Rock homes are still in Elwell, and because they have to go up and around, the assignment of them to Elwell makes sense from a planning standpoint, from a what's fair given the commuting pattern standpoint. It seems to make quite a bit of sense to me that we not change that. But the rest of your boundary change that you viewed on May 10th, 2020 continues to make sense given how the community has developed. So we have done a really good job of dividing the active subdivisions in the district between 2 elementary schools, which is the best way to address growth is to divide and conquer, which is what we've done. I have also drafted a memo that would assign Del Intero, our development that's actually in the city of Greeley up north, that would assign that to the Milliken Primary Intermediate Campus, and that would further divide that clientele once we start seeing impact from there. Now, we had some scrapers and some dump trucks drive onto that property 2 weeks ago, and they promptly went over, parked under the water tower, and went from there. So nothing happened. But I'm still watching carefully to see when they're going to start cutting streets. Now, the details on these 2 transitions, and again, the groups of children are almost the same. It's over 100, 110, 112. So the staffing transition can be very low impact. We're not going to have to do a lot of disruptive staffing action because we're looking at a transition of about the same amount of children in and out of these 2 neighborhoods. If you can go back to the other presentation real quick, I'll show, let's see, let's back up a little bit. So there is the east of Telep neighborhood with all of the lots that would be affected. And children are distributed throughout that neighborhood. There are the little light yellow dots that are on some of those individual lots. So we're talking about children that are PK through 5 right now. So it's my understanding that the superintendent and the deputy superintendent have contacted a lot of these families, and we are lobbying hard for them to transition into Pioneer Ridge and to help us manage our facilities in this area. But at this point, we're probably looking at another approach to transition those folks out.
I want to make sure I understand. So it's not quite yellow on ours, but the dots represent students who are currently going to Elwell?
Yes.
And I'm assuming more students than that who are already going to Pioneer Ridge?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So the neighborhood is mixed right now. It's transitioning from Elwell to Pioneer Ridge.
Do we know approximately how many students that was? You may have said that and I missed that.
How many students are going to Pioneer Ridge from there?
How many students are in that area who are at Elwell?
Pardon me? Close to 300. Oh, is it in the shift area?
In that area, and 50 were going one way and 150 were going the other way.
I think it's in the material we looked at in May, the number that I had was 148, and I think we're down to about 120 now.
That are going to Elwell.
That are going to Elwell, yes, sir. More intermediate age children, primary age children. So a lot of the families are self-selecting into Pioneer Ridge. So we're transitioning in that manner to a certain extent.
But right now from this area, we're only +2 out
Pioneer Ridge.
of Pioneer, sorry, yes.
And I think it's good for for board to remember when Karen was here, this is that neighborhood that we changed, met with, allowed for the grandfathering. I think Shannon has identified as he's looked that we have older kids, second, third, fourth, fifth graders that are there that make sense in grandfathering. We also have, because Pioneer Ridge has been full, the two principals have to make sure we accept school of choice at Elwell, even for some kids to help keep the pressure off Pioneer Ridge the last couple of years. That will free up now with the movement. And so the talk we've had with our committee is to manage that neighborhood through supporting them going to Pines as we continue to grow and Elwell's full. So where we haven't been able to do that really since you made 100 change, we've had little space, and that will have enough space at Pioneer Ridge that we not accept choice for those younger kids at Elwell, and they'll go Pioneer Ridge because we won't have space to take the choice kids at Elwell anymore. So
the data run that I just did is actually less than that. It's 92 children. So we have 12 pre-K kids. We have 11 kinder, 6 first graders, 11 second graders, and then 16 third graders, 15 fourth graders, and 21 fifth graders.
those would have been the grandfathered ones.
Yep, those are the ones that are grandfathered.
So those are currently going to PRE.
No, they're currently going to LOL.
I promise I will get this right. And we're saying your homeschool is.
Yeah, and that's been true since that spring Karen was here, and we as a district allowed for the grandfathering, so a slow move out, which I believe is why you see the 3 bigger grade levels and the smaller ones have all been school of choice in, as a grandfathering, so a year at a time.
So the group that would go to, would return to Milliken are the children that reside mostly south of County Road 40. And then there's the other subdivision that's just northeast of that. So in this slide, you'll see, let's see. These would be what I call the Milliken overflow, and that's 112 students. And there are, I don't have the PK, but there are 16 kinder, 19 first, 19 second, 18 third, 16 fourth, and 24 fifth. So almost an even grade distribution of children that are involved in that. And what we're suggesting for those children is that we offer kind of a guaranteed grandfather for 4th and 5th graders if the parents provide their own transportation, and that we build the sections at the Milliken schools to take the other children on back in. So we would offer a 4-5 grandfathering, and then the others we would ask to return home. Now, again, that's for next year's grade level assignments. So the children that would be in grades K through 2 this year would be the students that we would move in. So that would be a total of 16 plus the 19 times 2, 38, 40, 54 children that we would be asking to move for sure. And then the current 3rd and 4th grade would be grandfathered.
And this is the student body that Assistant Superintendent Kramer and I have talked to all of those families. Assistant Superintendent Kramer ended up emailing with a few that we didn't connect with. And we have some in each of those grade levels that's interested in driving their students to PRE. Our conversations, we're talking about the possibility of a grandfather at older levels. At the younger levels, only a school of choice option and only a space available, because what we can't see right now is how quickly we'll grow, fill up out there. So the grandfather all the way through doesn't feel responsible to the committee at this point.
Now, the next slide shows the map for that area. And you can see that it's that purple area that would be moved. And that is that triangular subdivision just north of County Road 46. And the two subdivisions south of it, and then the area that includes Bobcat and Puma, that little subdivision in that southwest corner. And there are only one or two children in that big large lot subdivision. And then we have a map that you would actually adopt that would be, and that's this other graphic. Yes, there you go. And this would be the boundary for school year 25, 26. That would include the Tello East boundary change, and that would establish County Road 19 as the divider between Milliken Intermediate and Elementary and the Pioneer Ridge system. And then we would run up to our traditional divider between those once we get well north of Youngstown and south of Pioneer Ridge. We would go back to the historical rural boundary for those areas which we have never touched. So that would be my suggestion. Unless you want to tweak this, you could adopt this map as your instrument of adoption of these two boundary changes if you chose to, and then defer to the administration to address the grandfathering issues. This map shows all 7 schools, and we have, this is a high resolution map, so if you zoom in on it, you can read the individual street names. And I intended to bring paper versions of this before I wound up having an altercation with my tires. But as you can see, as you zoom in on these, everything will be legible. And this is right up to date according to Weld County GIS. That little triangular area off to the left, when I do your voter list, that's actually, I think, in Larimer County. So that little area with no street detail on it, that's an oddball because I don't get that from Weld County GIS. And Larimer County wants me to pay them for it. So I don't have my lot detail in that little area on the other side in that corner there. But those are our trees. And
There's nothing there right now.
There probably will be soon.
pardon me?
There's nothing there right now, but there's a little bit.
Yeah,
Well,
we
there's a
have-
couple of farms, I think, but yeah, no development yet.
Oh, the granary, because that is west of Tella, is that in Elwell? I was just see where that,
That's in Pioneer Ridge. So if you can
can
zoom
you
back out.
zoom in on that
and-
little
and-
area?
Oh, is Tammy operating? Oh, okay.
I'm just teaching her how to do this.
Yeah, just drag fingers downward and it should go. And stop right there. So right off the HS for Roosevelt High School to the northeast of that, that's Pioneer. So you can see that is platted and I actually have the building footprints in there. And that area is also in Pioneer Ridge.
Okay.
And this is what we presented back in May of 23. And again, we are trying to manage the space in Elwell that we don't, so that we delay having portables in the parking lot as long as possible. And I think that this strategy, because we've got Ledge up there and we've got Revere, which has, I don't know, 125 lots sitting there. And then phase 2 of Ledge Rock will be another 70 vacant lots. And then these 58 houses that Lamar has built in Ledge Rock 1, more than half of them are under contract. So they're not speculatively building the majority of those homes. Most of those are pre-sold. And we'll start seeing registration demands from those families as soon as they get the interiors drywalled and painted and they get appliances and the yards built on those folks will start walking in the door asking to be served. So.
if I could just ask a question, probably Superintendent Nilsson, just for clarification, for those wondering about the grandfathering versus school of choice, could you just take a minute to explain that to really everyone who wants to know about that portion of it?
Yep. When I think about grandfathering, and I think about what you've heard Mr. Bill talk about tonight with our Pioneer Ridge to Milliken switch, when we say grandfathering fourth and fifth graders, then we will have a space at Pioneer Ridge for next year's fifth graders and for next year's fourth graders for 2 years. When we say school of choice is a 1-year opportunity. So families that wanted to school of choice into Pioneer Ridge next year as a second year, and we have space, we could accept them for second grade with no commitment for third grade. They'd have to school of choice again in third grade. And that allows us, if we're going through the school of choice process, to pay attention to how big our sizes are every year. I think it's important for the board to remember that as part of our contract with the union, we could accept them for second grade.
I was looking to chat cover, sorry.
We could accept them in second grade, but I don't remember where I was going with it. That's all right.
But it will be a year-to-year
Yeah,
process.
school of choice is a year-to-year process.
And
Based
then
on,
we're able to, evaluate the enrollment as our areas grow and we'll know how many kids are coming in the area.
We bump up against, I know where I was going, we bump up against in our contract right now, up to third grade teachers can only have 24 kids in their class. And if they have more than that, since then we have to get another teacher. And we run out of space. So that's why we've been trying to navigate LL and PRE, because we're both out of space at both of those buildings. But we also don't want to add teachers for the single student that walks in when we have other opportunities. So we've got to pay attention as well, knowing what Shannon just said is we're going to have students walking through the door the next 3 or 4 years from these places that are getting built by where Amy's living right now. You see the houses going in all the time right there. And we've got to have space for those people at Elwell. In Pioneer Ridge right now, see the growth as quickly, right? Granary's growing slower than lot. That river bend that talks about going in and nothing's happened down there. So we're going to have space Pioneer Ridge a little bit, and we're creating a lot of seats at the elementary level by bringing the intermediate on. So that helps us a lot. And one of the things Mr. Bingham's talked about with our committee is this practice we're doing this year is good where we are this year. But this is a conversation we're going to have probably annually about how do we potentially bring other students that live in Johnstown East, because that's where our seats are going to be. And so to be practical and smart with our taxpayer dollars, that's something we're going to have to continue to evaluate annually. But this gives us the ability to get through a year, possibly 2, without having to move other students. And the Del and Terrell move allows us to tell that whole group that right now has on their website Elwell as their neighborhood, that Milliken is going. So that's a whole group that hasn't started building yet, that we just plan for them to be on the Milliken side, where we have space rather than in Elwell where we're already almost full.
And keep in mind the East Tella boundary, most of us third, fourth, and fifth graders are grandfathered to Elwell. So that gives us the ability to hold the Milliken children in Pioneer Ridge. And as those transfer out into that fourth and fifth grade, that allows us to reduce the staffing disruption in those grade levels because we're transferring students out and transferring some students in. So it gives us some stability with our faculty there to enrollment in and out in a gradual way that won't be disruptive to the staff as well.
Shannon, you talked about, COVID trends since COVID, stuff with people putting their kids in schools where they work. So we don't have as much of that in Johnstown. But as with our growth coming in and our elementary schools being full, and we have a unique kind of district, obviously, with our enrollment. How do we do our school of choice, and then if we look at kids coming in with maybe parents working nearby and stuff, how do we do that? I'm not familiar with how we would do, like, our school that they're assigned and then school of choice, and then with the kids, like, outside of district, if there's a space for them, would they be like third? How do we do that? Is that correct?
And,
Somebody asked me this the other day.
prior to now, this district has been pretty liberal with school of
Right.
choice,
Yeah.
that space. But yes, your in-district students have priority over out-of-district
And
students.
that, like, that's the order.
Yes.
I had somebody ask me that, and I didn't want to speak to it incorrectly, but,
And we'll have
that's
to,
what I assume.
we'll have to start saying no to out-of-district
Right.
students in this
We'll
district.
face it eventually,
Yep.
but, okay. I think-
Last year, we exported 620 students and we imported 89. So we are a net exporter of children. And every of those children has 10 grand in their front pocket. So for the most part, obviously to protect our space, but we are not a net importer of students as some of our neighbors are, as far as their, especially in college towns, their ability to have their staffing bring their children to work to school with them, and so they would be a net importer. So I know that Poudre is a net importer for the surrounding districts in that area. And a lot of UNC staff bring them to work with them as well. And Greeley's numbers are up this fall, and we're seeing a lot of affordable housing in older neighborhoods in central Greeley that's very attractive to folks. And both Greeley and Evans have a fee, a capital impact fee. And Taro, did we negotiate something with Greeley for those folks to pay a fee?
We did, yeah, we've done that, we've done that.
So, but we are a net exporter at this point.
Just a question that I anticipate the community having, because I don't think anything brings up more fear than a boundary change in the hearts of parents with elementary age students. With school of choice and grandfathering, have we had to say no at this point? Do we anticipate having to say no this upcoming 25-26 school year?
I think when Tammy and I have made the phone calls to the Milliken families, it's likely that we will be able to accommodate at PD the students that ultimately can drive themselves. So that's the limiting factor, is you got families that say they want to stay, but the families that said they want to stay and are willing to drive, as saw at Elwell, I think, when you had that conversation and all that, we think we'll be able to accommodate that. As has been typical the last couple of years, we are making school of choice decisions pretty late in the summer because of move-ins. We have to see them first, and we're going to have to work, as Shannon's outlined, particularly with Elwell, to hold some seats open. So we're going to have to call that school full at a smaller class size we have in recent years, so that we have space available for walk-ins. And that's going to be different for us. We have, because of the pick between Pioneer Ridge and Elwell, we've tried to get both of those two as close to 94 kids as we've been able to in each grade level. That's the most efficient when we talk to Mr. Everest. And so we've tried to do that, at least in my 2 years here. We're going to need to be more aggressive now in how we protect Elwell, because that's where our growth currently is.
We have a lot of change about to happen with the Ledge Rock apartments about to fully occupy and the Ledge Rock homes about to fully occupy. But the Ledge Rock homes are more expensive than the Revere homes. And we only have 3 children out of the Revere homes. So I'm thinking
Is
that,
that north of Roxbury Ridge?
yes, so I'm thinking there's some sort of odd regional student movement behavior there that may be happening, it may not, but we're not going to know until after this summer. And we'll have to just closely monitor what happens.
I don't have any insight, but I think those homes are drawing young families that don't have kids yet. So we're gonna.
In Revere.
And in Ledge Rock to a certain extent.
Well, there's only a handful of people in there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of it too. There's
So-
hardly anyone in those apartments.
I think we're gonna see those kids show up in 2, 3, 4 years.
And
So-
politically speaking, if there's a if there's an interest rate decrease, that will affect essentially our school district numbers. If people can get in for a lower interest rate, then homes will start selling faster.
I think it could. I think an immigration policy change is something that Colorado school districts are also concerned about, as far as that having a change on enrollment as well. But I think the interest situation for us will be more profound.
Next
And
week,
I
Alice.
28 apartments with the lights on at Ledge Rock. So if I ever.
So you're the creepy guy.
Say, come bail me out, I got arrested. Watching to see who turns the lights on.
Sure.
So that was you, I see.
So-
Yeah, that's me. And I do have binoculars. I've got binoculars. So
I was walking my dog and there was a guy out, I forget, he was surveying something and I stopped him. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you out here? Because he was looking at everything, looking at homes and, you never know. So if I stop you, I will stop you now because now I know who you are. Because I'm always out with my dogs, my mace, this guy up too.
But to follow up on the interest rate thing, this time last year we were at 8.3. And so we've just got to pray for these young families that they're going to get down into lives where they can start affording to buy homes anymore. Because this development community has really responded well with pricing in Revere being very attractive to young families, and with a lot of the stuff that Basler has built with their attached units that are in Mountain View, north of Overlook, up in that area. A lot of those homes have been that product. They build that in Bennett, they build that in Highlands Auto District, and it's been very attractive to young families. So that's kind of the silver lining associated with the interest rate situation. It has resulted in the construction community starting to put a housing product out there that's more friendly to young families.
What are interest rates?
Say again?
What are the interest rates right now? You said they were 8 last year?
We're at 8, and I think we're just over 6 now.
Oh.
So I think we may, I don't know what it was today. I can check real quick, but last time I checked, it was 6.
Okay, you knew last year, so I wondered if you knew.
So the question for the board, I think, is the staff is recommending what the committee brought forward. And we can take action tonight. You also could decide you want to have the conversation we just had, to post it until we come back together in January and take action. The thing that I would love to see us do in short order is the letter to Del and Taro. It's important that they see that and get that on their website changed. In terms of the other change we're making, because we made those individual calls, we've done more outreach than typically you do in about change already. And so I feel more confident in going ahead and making a move if you're ready. As staff, we're ready for whatever the next direction from the board is.
So I have a quick question on Del and Taro, because weren't they going to dedicate land?
They have land on their property for sure for us.
I mean, it was what, 20 acres?
Yeah, it was
Is it? I thought it was 20. I thought it was, we were,
big enough for a K-8, but not big enough for a high school.
Where is that on this map? Do you mind just pointing that out?
It's off the map, but it's right at, we are the only diamond-shaped school district in the state of Colorado, and Del and Taro is right at the apex of the diamond, at the intersection of 257 and 34.
257, okay.
It's
Across from the Pepsi offices.
right next to that mushroom-shaped water tower that's there. Del and Taro sits right underneath that water tower.
Okay, got it.
And I would suggest to the board that if in fact Del and Taro started to move quickly, which I don't think Shannon or I think it's going to do.
It'll take 20 months to flush a toilet where they are now.
So, but if it moved quickly and they gave us land, maybe,
had to draw them together.
Michael, maybe that's in the next spot for an elementary to go. But in the early houses that are up there, they have to come somewhere. We won't have a school there before they put houses there. So you gotta have a place for those early families to go.
Here's my challenge with Delantero, depending on what they're gonna build there, is, I mean, Shannon, one takeaway I've gotten from this, I mean, we've seen a lot of growth, but we just haven't seen a lot of increase in student population with that growth. Obviously, you said there's a pretty high export rate we've got going. But I'm concerned with Delantero that they have dedicated land, that it's probably land we won't take advantage of for quite some time unless they do something that really draws in families.
I don't know whether they dedicated it or they designated it. They may have designated it in their master plan.
Because
Affirmative.
Yeah, I don't think they've taken any, well, they haven't taken any legal action to dedicate it.
Because that brings then that next piece is that I suppose we ought to look into that a little deeper, and because we don't want, and this could be one of those things that 20 years from now we'll say, dang it, we did the wrong thing. But if they are bringing kids in, we definitely want to collect that cash in lieu. But if it's going to be a center of a lot of families, we'd much rather build a school than have that land. So it's kind of that real crystal ball one for us on that deal.
One of the things Shannon has said that I think is interesting, even tonight he's talked about a little about, that neighborhood Delantero is going to have no loyalty to our district. They're going to be closer to Greeley schools and Windsor schools than ours.
Yep.
So if we want to capture the kids for our middle and our high school, we're going to want to have an elementary that gets them in our district and gets them connected to us. And maybe that neighborhood, at least what they're talking about in time, maybe that's a K-8 there, which I think they talked, before I was on, I think they talked about a K-8 out there. I think that's part of what the long range thing has to continue to think about, is exactly what you're talking about. Right now, it's simply to say, if you bring kids in currently, we have a for you in an elementary school, it's not Elwell, because we don't have space. And we certainly can't bring in all those people from Delantero all the way down to Elwell without that school being twice the size.
Well, just for this plan, I like the plan. It closes the loop from where we were 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And what we said we would do. So that's good. It makes us not lie, so that's good. My only concern with all of this is the grandfathering. And I think it's the right thing to do. I know we did it before. My fear is that's a precedent. Because this is a process we're going to have to go through every 2 years probably at most, until this all kind of settles down a little bit. And if we say grandfathering now, we said grandfathering last time we did this, does that set us up for, because the goal is to balance our schooling, to not have 600 kids at LL and 400 kids at PRE, is to have 500 kids at both, which I think this does. But if we grandfather 100 kids who live down by what will be RMS, to go to one or the other, it messes all that up. So I think I don't want to say no to grandfathering, but I think we got to be really careful about how we do it.
I think one of the things we talked about in the committee, and I just pushed us on it, I think, a bit to think it through, because what we did 2 years ago was grandfather everything. And so we already kind of wrestled with what's the right move here. We set a precedent 2 years ago. We don't think we can manage this time, because we don't think we can wait 4 years and give space at Pioneer Ridge. We're comfortable with 5th grade next year, and relatively comfortable with 4th grade going into 5th grade. And then one of the things we felt pretty intentional about that is those students move from Milliken to Pioneer Ridge during their elementary stay. They would be moving back to intermediate for a year or two, and then they would be going to the middle school. So we felt some logic to allowing those families to stay there if we can manage. We were uncomfortable, I think, when we talk about where are we going to be 3 years from now? And that's why we school of choice. But we have talked about doing it all through school of choice, which would be all year by year. And I think that's at the preference of the board. Feel like we could manage grandfathering just those 2 grade levels.
And I think we could too. Like I said, I did the right thing because we kind of made that promise 18 months ago. We would do that. So I think that's the right thing. It just makes me a little bit nervous when we do this 2 years from now. People will step and say, well, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, you grandfathered. And we can't ever just rip that Band-Aid off and set boundaries where we want to set them. So that's my only concern. I think the plan is the right. I appreciate you all doing the work to talk to those families individually. We do that last time and we heard about it. So that work was good work. Are we ready to make a motion or do we have more questions?
The only reason I would hesitate, but I think that concern has already been addressed by all of the people involved in this, is I think everyone has been reached that has direct impact with these moves. And that's correct to say that we could action because we have made that concerted effort, correct? Sounds like everyone's done such a great job. Don't want people to be.
I think the other thing to let the board know is we also committed when we did our listening sessions that they are open to come to the board in any of our board meetings. And we haven't had anybody come to a board meeting or reach out to talk about a board meeting since we did those in September and October. So I think that's the other thing. You haven't heard anything, to my knowledge. We haven't had them come to these meetings. We haven't got communication. The calls we had, yes, there were a couple people frustrated with it. But in general, they were a lot of conversations than I thought they'd be.
We also have people that we are saying, if you all decide to have 4th and 5th grade grandfathered, we have people within that group who have said, we want to go to Milliken.
Right.
You know, for various reasons. So there's that piece too.
All right. I want to make a motion to approve the boundary changes as in, and to send a letter to the Del Antero Property Group on behalf of the school district.
I will second.
That was cool. I'm surprised.
That one was- We have a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Johnson to approve the boundary changes as presented. Any discussion on the motion?
You mean any more discussion?
Any more discussion?
For-
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Diagana.
Monica Johnson,
Yes.
Nate Sassano,
Yes.
Amy Musgrave, Michael Whale.
Yes.
Well, good work, and good work to the long-range planning for putting in the heavy lifting on all of this. Shannon, you really put the lifting in. Are you the drone guy that they keep talking about too, like the mysterious drones that are flying around in it?
Drones? No, I'm not the drone.
Okay.
I do fly model aircraft, but I don't fly drones. I still think.
Private eyes.
Yeah, thanks for bringing your intellect and much to share with the team and share with the board. It's good for us to try up with what you keep up with. It's impressive what you do. So.
You're most welcome. Keep an eye on Ledge Rock.
I don't have to drive back through Glenwood Canyon tonight.
What's that?
You don't have to go drive back through Glenwood Canyon
No,
tonight.
I'm going to the Comfort Suites in Meade. Is the extent of my.
That's better than Glenwood Canyon.
Pardon me?
That's than Glenwood Canyon.
Way better than Glenwood Canyon. Don't ever get a flat on the viaducts in Glenwood Canyon. Me and 2 other guys hit the same concrete hole at Lowe's, so within about 10 minutes.
There's a hotel in Meade, I have to add.
What's that?
There's a hotel in Meade?
The hotel.
Yeah, there's 5 of them. They're
You
in.
know where that, there's like a Raising Cane's, I think,
Yeah.
or like there's a Del Taco.
Yeah.
Like that area is Meade, I think it's 119.
That's-
It's not
It's
Cane's, or my
actually-
kids would be there all the time, but yes,
I
now I know what you're talking about.
I
Yeah.
didn't either, yeah.
Meade has annexed to the southeast very aggressively.
Okay.
So
That's right.
fast,
I did it,
they
yeah.
keep going.
All right, we'll move on to our next item of special business, and that is the mill levy certification to the Will County Board of County Commissioners. Mr. Eversum, I presume.
Thank you, President Wales, members of the Board of Education, and Superintendent Nielsen. Tonight, I would, or, do you want me to project or you? Tonight, I'd like to get the board's approval for our annual mill levy certification for collection year 2025.
Sorry, I have to close these because it's gonna bother me to have open tabs at.
Go to the second slide. So this first is just second slide is just basically, so in August, we get from the counties preliminary evaluation, and then in late November, early December, we get the final valuation. And this year they were very close. So for Weld County, you can see, so our assessed valuation for tax year 2024, 1.3 billion. The preliminary valuation in August was 1,202 million, and the final valuation in December was 1,203. That's 1,203 million. So about an increase of 912,000 or 0.8%. So they were very close this year. Other years they've always been close, but been really close. Our assessed valuation for 2025 has decreased by 9.39%. Larimer County, which we have a little bit in, you can see there a decrease of $1,874 or 0.22%. From the preliminary to the full valuation, and an overall decrease of 8.5% year over year. If we look now at the table, so Jessica, could you bump it up one more? The size, I'm sorry.
Oh, I see.
That might be a little. There you go, thank you. So this table just shows, so on the left two columns are collection year 2023, and then 24. So you can see the change between the 2 years in the right column. So you see our actual valuation only went down just over $20 million in aggregate. But our assessed valuation fell $124 million. And the reason for that, if you look at the oil and gas line, you see the huge decrease that we had there. And then that, you look at the increase in actual value in our residential row there, and then what that translated into assessed valuation. So that just kind of shows you the just the impact, with how little residential value we get from that translates from actual value to assessed value, versus with gas. Residential, it's about 6%. They keep changing it all the time. It's around 6%. Oil and gas is 5%. So that's just kind of something I found interesting. If we move to the next slide. This is what you're being asked to approve tonight. So our mill levies for tax year 2025. So total CRAM. So this is the line where you may remember so a couple years ago the state passed a new law where most districts need to get to 27 mills for their total program line. So we were at 21.414 mills last year. So this year we went up a mill to get to 22.414 mills. And then the mill levy overrides, that's the $4.5 million that has been approved for mill levy overrides for the district. Abatement is very minor a very minor amount. And then the general obligation bond, so that's our building project bonds that we pay. So adding all of those up together, I'm proposing that we assess 36.07 mils for tax year 2025. And then the bottom two lines here are what was done in collection year 24. So last year at this time, the board approved totals of 33.988. So we are looking at increasing the mill levy by just over 2 mils. So which one of those mills is the result of our total program increase, and the other mill is the result of our decrease in assessed valuation. And then the last slide, requested board action. District administration is requesting board approval of the property tax mill levy resolution included in this presentation. This concludes my presentation, and I answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions? This is what our December meeting is always all about. This is the
high point of my year.
This is kind of the main event of this evening. If there's no questions, I'd enter a motion. And remind you that this is a statutory requirement of the Board of Education.
I'll move to approve the property tax mill levy resolution for the 2025 collection year as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Johnson, approve the property tax mill levy resolution for the 2025 collection year as presented. Any discussion? Further discussion? See, now I feel like we've got to change the way we do this, because now I feel spit every time I say it. Hearing none. Ms. Diagana.
Mike Johnson. Yes. Nate Solano.
Yes.
Amy Musgrave. Michael Webb.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Everest.
Thank you.
Our next item is the approval of the Milliken Intermediate School, Pioneer Ridge Elementary School playground loan, and I'm guessing we're back to you with that, Mr. Everest.
Correct, President Wales. Thank you again.
I work at the carnival, right? I mean, I can't guess weight or age, but I can guess who's next.
You know, good skills in that regard.
Champion.
All right, as we move to the second slide. So this is just an overview of the terms of the loan. So we're going to be borrowing up to $2,280,000. And, you know, as we've discussed, the loan purpose is $780,000 for playground replacement at Pioneer Ridge Elementary and $1.5 million to do some renovations on the MMS building and turn that into the Milliken Intermediate School. The loan rates is basically two components of the loan. So there is this is a construction loan. So there's going to be each month as we install playground equipment or do renovation work at MMS, we'll submit a draw request to the bank, and then they will give that to us. So during the construction phase, during the draw phase, the interest rate is a variable rate of prime plus 3/4, and that currently is 8.5%. When the draw period concludes, we're going to have a fixed rate at 6.5% for the term of the loan. The loan term, so the first 12 months is the construction phase, where we make interest payments, and then we have a 3-year term loan, the payment schedule of which, instead of it being amortized over 3 years, is amortized over 10 years. So the monthly payments will be less, so then that will result in a payment at the end, which on a subsequent slide, I have that information for you. But that's the general construction of the loan.
So that initial 12-month, the construction piece, is that in addition to the 3-year, or is that part of the 3-year total?
That's in addition, so it's,
Okay.
it's the 4 years. The first year construction.
It's just that interest on
3
it.
years, the fixed portion.
Okay.
Then if you could move to the next slide. And so, and Jessica, maybe bump it up one. Thank you. So this is really just more of a hypothetical draw schedule because I don't really have a great idea of exactly how much and when we will draw down. But with this, you know, we won't begin paying interest until we begin drawing down money on this. So for example, for December, let's say, we pay, you know, $125,000 for the PRE playground. So then that month we would pay $885 in interest. Then if we don't do anything in January, we pay another $885 in interest. And then presumably around February timeframe, we'll start the MIS draws. And so then you can just kind of see on the right column there, you know, the interest increasing as the balance that we've drawn down has increased. So, you know, in this example, we would have $2,000 in interest on this loan when we conclude the draw phase of it. And then if we look at the next slide, so this just shows, you know, in the green shaded area, so that's for the 3 years of the fixed rate period. So we'll start with the $1,280,000 balance. You know, year 1, year 2, year 3, we pay interest and principal. Over those 3 years, we'll pay around, you know, almost $411,000 in interest and $540,000 in principal, which will leave us with an ending balance at the end of $1,739,000. At which time, you know, either the district has passed a new bond or we would need to refinance this loan. And so the last slide, so requested board action. District administration is requesting board approval for the construction loan to the First National Bank of Omaha for renovating Milliken Middle School, and then Milliken Intermediate School, and replacement of the playground at Pioneer Ridge Elementary School. This concludes this presentation, and I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to authorize the construction loan between Will County School District RE5J and the First National Bank of Omaha as presented.
We have a motion by Director Johnson, a second by Vice President Zasano to approve the construction loan between the school district and the First National Bank of Omaha. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Diagana.
Monica Johnson? Yes. James Spano?
Yes.
Amy Musgrave? Michael Whale?
Yes.
This one.
Sorry, I just want to say thank you guys for this. I know the PRE community will be very excited about their new playgrounds that will start being built in a month or 2, right? So, yes, I just don't feel like that.
Well, I was just trying to, it's getting late, I was just trying to think, but yeah, I mean, the equipment is en route.
That's, yeah.
It has been ordered, right, it is en route.
Yeah.
So.
it's been a long time coming
I
for
think
them,
there's,
so.
yeah, I think David's right, I think there's stuff in district now.
Yeah, that's what I thought so. Anyway, the point is, thank
I
you.
would say you're welcome, and I also appreciate, I think the board has advocated. And I think that's important to be heard too, is that the board advocated to take care of some things that need taken care of, and that happens to be one of them, so.
Sorry, I derailed.
True that.
Oh.
True that.
Our next item of special business, our final item of special business, is the minimum wage increase and a salary schedule adoption. Mr. Everest.
Thank you again, President Whale. So, this should be a pretty simple thing. So we go to the second slide.
I was talking.
We'll wait. So in January, the Colorado minimum wage will be increasing to $14.81 per hour. Currently, the minimum wage is $14.42 an hour. This increase basically, we have several position types that are essentially pegged to the minimum wage. They're temporary type positions. So for temporary workers, substitute secretaries, substitute library aides, substitute paraprofessionals. Those are the groups that are directly impacted by this. They're currently at the $14.42 an hour rate. And then also with the modification of the salary schedule, Mr. Rodriguez also requested that the substitute custodians be added to the salary schedule. They'd already been paid at the $17.24 an hour. They just weren't on the salary schedule. So this would correct that oversight. And so our requested board action is for District Conventions requesting board approval of the revised classified hourly schedule, company increase in Colorado minimum wage to $14.81. This concludes this presentation, and I can answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions? Hear none. What about a motion?
I'll move to update the classified hourly salary schedule to reflect the increase of the Colorado minimum wage to $14.81 per hour as presented.
I have a motion by Director Johnson, a second by Vice President Sano to update the classified hourly salary schedule to reflect the increase in the Colorado minimum wage. Any further discussion, Mr. Evers?
Add a substitute custodians to that motion? Or is that fine?
They're already on the revised schedule. And I apologize, one thing that I forgot to mention is that in the presentation it says, basically making this retroactive to December 12th. That starts the pay period that includes January 1st, which is when the new minimum wage rate goes into effect. So this wouldn't start January 1st, it would actually start tomorrow. For those affected groups.
Okay.
Apologize, I forgot to mention that.
Okay. Motion still stand?
Yes.
Second? Okay. Any further discussion? Ms. Diagon?
Monica Johnson,
Yes.
Nate Sisano,
Yes.
Amy Musgrave, Michael Wales.
Yes. Do we have any citizen comments on general topics? So we do at this point need to move into executive session. Are we going to have?
Chad's gonna join us
Okay.
remotely.
Yeah, go ahead.
I move that we go into an executive session pursuant to section 24-6-2 for A of the Colorado Revised Code, for purposes of discussing the sale and transfer property commonly known as Leffler Park to the town of Johnstown. And section 24-604-2 for B of the Colorado Revised Statute for purposes of consulting with our attorney on the issue of the transfer of the Leffler Park property to the town of Johnstown. Somebody else.
Oh, I'll second that.
It's a very long motion.
Yeah.
We have a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Johnson to enter into an executive session to discuss the transfer of property of Leffler Park to the town of Johnstown with our attorney. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
We're back, okay. The time is now 9:26 and the executive session has been concluded. I certify there was no discussion of any items other than those subjects stated. So that will bring us to the second item. I'm sorry. That would bring us to our additional items of consideration, which is the approval of the sale of Ledford Elementary.
I will move to approve the sale of the Ledford site of the town of Johnstown as presented.
We have a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Johnson to approve the sale of the Ledford site to the town of Johnstown as presented. Any further discussion?
Yay.
Yay, hallelujah.
Not approved yet. Sorry to see her go, but glad to see her go into good hands. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Diagana.
Monica Johnson,
Yes.
Nate Fasano,
Yes.
Amy Musgrave, Mike Colvin.
Yes.
Now.
Big smile. Big smiles.
Well, it's been a momentous evening this evening.
Yes.
We've done some historic things here tonight. We've closed down middle school. Transferred the sale of the Ledford property, and we brought 2 new board members on. So thank you, everybody, for an evening. Any other items deemed necessary? Hearing none, are adjourned at 9:28.
Oh, but you're not done, Mike.